Hey everybody, it's Michael from Wahoo Comics, here with another haul and speculation video. And as usual, I've got a bunch of books I'm looking forward to showing you. Plus today, I've got a couple of exciting updates at the end of the video I'm looking forward to sharing with you. But first, let's get to these books. So recently, I was most excited to pick up some Silver Age X-Men keys, beginning with this one, X-Men number 58, which contains the first appearance of Havoc in costume. Now, there are a few important firsts for this character. So in 54, there's the first appearance of Alex Summers. In 56, he shows some powers. But here in 58 is where he really becomes the Havoc that we know, where he takes on the costume and that identity. Obviously says Havoc on the cover. It's his first appearance on a cover. And so I think all of those books are great ones to invest in. Really, I mean, anytime you can pick up a Silver Age X-Men book, it's a fine investment. As long as comics are a thing, people will always want X-Men books, especially early ones. But the market has decided that this is the most valuable of those books. And so I'm really happy to have it, especially because I've always been a fan of Havoc. I think especially because I'm not a big fan of his older brother, Cyclops. And I just never found him very interesting. And so I think I've always felt Havoc was underrated and overshadowed since Cyclops is one of the original X-Men. And so I've always had a soft spot in my heart for him. And so I'm really happy to get this key that is really important to his character. Well, I also got X-Men number 60, which contains the first appearance of Sauron. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you know that I love to collect the first appearances of villains. And Sauron is one of my favorite because I think he's just so quirky and odd because he's a pterodon. But in his human form, he's a psychiatrist who's learned hypnotism. And so as Sauron, the pterodon, he can hypnotize people. I've always just thought that was such a weird, random thing to see this pterodon character hypnotizing people. But I also found out something really interesting about this character this week as I was getting ready for the video. So as you might know, his main power is being basically like an energy vampire. So if he touches someone, he can drain their energy. And if he touches a mutant, then he drains so much energy since they have so much more power that he then transforms into this pterodon. Now he got those powers because some mutated pterodons bit him, comics logic dictates then that somehow makes him an energy vampire that then turns into a pterodon. And I've always just thought it was so bizarre that like a pterodon has an energy vampire powers. It just doesn't make much sense to me. But yeah, it's the Silver Age. There are lots of quirky ideas then. But I found out the character was originally designed to look much more like a bat. So much more fitting in with the idea of an energy vampire. Obviously bats being associated with vampires. But at the time that this was made, the Comics Code Authority wouldn't approve of comics that had vampires in them. So vampires were banned. And so Marvel was concerned that if they made this character a bat, then he would be banned because it would be too much like a vampire. So instead, the creators thought, well, what looks the closest to a vampire or a bat? And they thought, well, a pterodon's pretty close, and so we'll make him a pterodon. And I thought that was just a pretty interesting bit of trivia that I learned this week. All right, one more X-Men key is this one, X-Men number 64, which contains the first appearance of Sunfire. Again, just like Havoc, a character that I've always felt is underrated, and I've always been a big fan of his, and so excited to add this to my collection. And all these books, again, if comics are a thing, will rise steadily in value over time. But if they ever have Sunfire in the MCU or Havoc or even Sauron, I mean, those books are going to explode in value. And so I'm happy to get them now. Now, pretty cool story with this seller that I bought these from. After I ordered these and paid for them, I realized, oh man, he's got another book that I'm interested in. And it was a really cheap book. But I wanted it, and so I messaged him. It's like, oh man, I'm sorry about this. I know I've already paid, but you have this other book I'm interested in. I don't know if you've packed these books up already, but if not, can I order that book and add it, and I'll pay. And he responded back. He said, "Hey, don't worry about it. Yeah, I'll add it, and you don't have to pay for it. I'll just take care of it for you." So obviously that was music to my ears, and it's a book that I think is a really great budget spec right now. Is this one, Elektra Assassin #1, which is the first solo series for Elektra. And if you've been watching my videos, you know that I think getting the first solo series of characters are really great things to speculate on, especially ones like this where you can pick them up for $2 or $3 probably pretty easily. Because if these characters make it to the MCU, which Elektra might at some point, it seems like the Daredevil characters are coming sooner rather than later, which obviously means that she would come. Then this book goes from a $2 or $3 book to a $40 or $50 book. At least if it keeps the trajectory many other books have. So if you saw my videos a few months ago, my sleeper of the week was Black Knight #1. I bought several copies of that for $2 or $3, and then by the time the Eternals rolled around, I was able to sell that book for $40 to $50 many times, and made a nice little return on investment. And so a book like this, again, if you can get it for $2 or $3, I mean, I wouldn't spend a ton of money on it, but you just pick it up, put it in the back of your box. She shows up, boom, you sell it. And for me, like with Black Knight, Captain Marvel's the same way. Her first solo series, one shot. I'll buy several. I'll keep one, whichever one's in the best condition, and then sell the others. So, but I'm happy to have my first copy, and hopefully maybe pick up some others. All right, and then the other books I'll show you. There is a seller who posted his collection online on a Facebook group, and I wish I'd seen the ad earlier. Because he was selling all of his books for $1, and there were some pretty sweet ones that had already gone by the time I got to him. But I still was able to find some really neat books, and I don't have time to show them all to you. But keeping in the theme of First Solo Series, I'll show you some books that I think, again, if you can pick up for $1 or $2, is something to consider doing. First of all, there's War Machine #1. Which of course is the first solo series for the War Machine. We do know there's an Armor Wars Disney Plus show coming out soon, probably in the next year or two, and interest in the War Machine character is going to grow as we get closer to that series, and so now I think is a good time to pick it up. A couple of X-Men related titles, Bishop #1, and also Magneto #1. And again, if these characters show up in the MCU, these go from $1 or $2 books to $30 to $40 books. And then that'll bring me to my sleeper of the week, which is this one, Hercules, Prince of Power #1. Again, a book that you should be able to find pretty easily for $1 or $2. I've found a couple of copies of this already for around that. And obviously it's the first solo series of Hercules, is why I'm spotlighting it. And I think sooner rather than later, Hercules is going to show up in the MCU. Obviously, a lot of people think that. And I especially think that he's going to pop up in Thor. Personally, that's what I think. I mean, who knows? This is just, my guess. So I could totally be wrong on this. But Russell Crowe has been cast as Zeus in Thor. And it doesn't make any sense to me to introduce Zeus without introducing Hercules, who's such a much more important part to the Marvel Universe. Now, I don't know if he'll have a big role in that movie. I definitely could see it, like Zeus having a role in the movie and Hercules not being there, and like an end credit scene, all of a sudden Hercules shows up on the screen to set up for a movie down the line that he has a bigger role in. I definitely could see that happening, but I think there's a great shot, even like a cameo like that he's in that movie. If not that movie, I mean, I do think it's got to be soon, right? Yeah, he's a big player in the Marvel universe. So if you can find this for $1 or $2, yeah, you might consider picking it up. All right. Well, before I get to my question of the week, I want to share a couple of exciting updates. So if you watched my last video, you might remember I was looking for some advice because there was someone who I had met online who was looking to sell their collection, and we texted back and forth, and we made an agreement that he's going to sell it to me. And then we were working out the details, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to send it by this point. Then I'll get you the final amount you owe me later." And I was really excited about it, and then he ghosted me. And so in my last video, I was asking advice on like, hey, how aggressive should I be in following this guy up? Should I give him a phone call? Should I text again? How long should I wait till texting? Or should I just drop it and realize this ghosting is just saying, leave me alone? So I really appreciated all the advice I got from that. It was really helpful. And what I decided to do was shortly after making the video, send one more text and just say, hey man, just want to see if there's any kind of update. Well, unfortunately, I heard nothing back. But, because I was kind of frustrated at, some of that situation, there are a couple other guys that ghosted me a couple of months ago. We didn't move as far along in making a deal as I had with this guy, but there's one person in particular that said they had some comic books they were looking to sell, and I said, "Oh man, that's great. Well, can you send me a list to him?" He said, "Yeah, I'll do that." He never sent me a list, and I messaged him probably like in December, like, hey, do you have that list? And got ghosted, and I was like, okay, I guess this is it. But last week, I reached out to him again and said, hey man, just wanted to follow up. If you're still interested in selling comics, I'm still interested in buying them. And he replied back, and he sent me a partial list of what he had. And so there was one book I was super excited about that I went ahead and bought from him. And he has shipped it to me. And I'm excited to show that off next week. And he's still compiling a full list. He inherited a collection from his father, and so he didn't have it all written down and everything. But I'm excited that I'm going to pick up hopefully some other really cool books from him, and really excited about the one book I already have. And so that was something I was going to share that I was excited about, especially kind of in the midst of trying to figure out how aggressive I should be in following up people. But then, just tonight, right before getting ready to put this video together, I actually got a text back from the original guy. And he said, hey man, I haven't forgotten about you. Sorry that I've been slow to respond, but things have been crazy. If you remember in that video, I'd mentioned I did know that he was in the middle of moving. And he said things were just crazier than he thought it was going to be with that, but that he did still want to sell me the collection. And he said, hopefully I can get these one or two things done in the next day or two, and then later this upcoming week we can wrap up the deal. So I am super excited about that and to hear from him, and I'm looking forward to showing you what I got out of that collection when it hopefully goes through. I've learned not to count my chickens before they hatch. Until the money's been paid and the comics have been shipped, I know things can fall through. But it seems like it's going to go through, so I'm pretty excited about that. And it's just been a really cool experience, both of those cases. Trying to learn the balance of, obviously not pestering people or being annoying, but at the same time, just is one of the comments suggested last week, that keeping the lines of communication open with people. I think that's really important. And if you can do that, keep the lines open, even when people aren't maybe quick to respond, I think it will really pay off. I think that was the key. And so I appreciate those who responded, encouraging me to do that, especially. And I think that's, certainly what I'll plan to do going forward with people, to realize that, sometimes people just get busy and they don't mean to ghost you. I mean, it's really sometimes they probably do. But sometimes they're just busy. And so, if you just touch base here and there, again, not in an overly aggressive, annoying way, then it can really pay off. And so I've learned that lesson. And I think it applies not just to buying comics, but really to lots of things. Just keep lines of communication open. All right. Well, that brings me to my question of the week. And today I'm going to do something different. It's not going to be comic related. This is Super Bowl weekend. And so I'm curious, who are you pulling for in the Super Bowl? Now, for me, I would be happy for either team. I'm not a huge fan of one or the other, and I don't hate one or the other. But I think I'm going to be pulling for the Cincinnati Bengals, just because they are the only original NFL team not to have ever won a Super Bowl. And so it would be nice to see them finally get one. They've had lots of terrible years, and so they've often been known as the Cincinnati Bungles. So it would be nice to see the Bungles finally put one together and get the Vince Lombardi trophy. So, but what about you? Who are you pulling for and why? All right, well, that brings me to end the video. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'd appreciate if you'd consider doing so. We're getting closer and closer to 200 subscribers. Like the video, comment, all those things that help us out. All right, well, I enjoyed making the video. Hope you enjoyed watching it, and look forward to the next one.